This episode of The Big 60 brought to you by Louis Carr Real Estate, helping people in the Hills District find their dream home since 1992. Ready to buy, sell or rent? Check out louiscarr.com.au for all your property needs.
If you're old enough to remember when phones had cords and the only thing that went viral was a cold, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Big 60 with Kaylee Harris and Guy Rawlinson. Because who better to discuss life's second act than two people who still think mature is a type of cheese?
Welcome to the Big 60. If you've stumbled across us for the first time, congratulations, you've unlocked the podcast. For anyone who's ever wondered how I got the 60 and my joints sound like bubble wrap, I'm Guy Rollison, your host, and joining me is my fabulous co-host and old, inverted commas, old school buddy from back of the day, Kaylee Harris.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well, except for those bubble wrap knees.
Oh, did you play footy or something, or why have you got sore knees?
Sport is a criminal, isn't it?
Yeah.
From just when you're young, and I'm still sort of playing old man sport. Like I gave up sort of soccer, only last year. So and still playing baseball.
Cool.
So yeah, it doesn't help, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something other than sort of sitting on my hands.
Actually, we should do something about in a future podcast. We should talk, because I tried walking netball a couple of years ago. So the Department of Recreational Sport or whatever it was in New South Wales started this whole push to get old people like us back out playing sport. So they started walking netball, walking basketball and walking soccer. So if you played it when you were younger, you could go back, but you didn't have to be. And I went with these other old ladies, and we it is so hard not to run.
That's the thing. That I've seen walking soccer, and it looks like something from a Monty Python sketch.
Yeah.
Where if you're capable of running and you're thinking, oh, I can get to that, and you look a little bit. You
want to run, but with walking netball, you've got to always have one foot on the ground. And this poor young girl who was umpiring us every week, she was all of 20. She's Kaylee, excuse me, you're running again. I was like, oh, God. And this competitive side of me came back out again, and it did with all the ladies. And we were, by the end of it, we were ready, like we turned into those netball Nazi people, and we were ready to smash each other. I don't think this is the point.
I've seen it. It's just not for me. I'm figuring that if you're going to play sport, and look, I'm not dissing on anyone that wants to take up walking netball or walking soccer or whatever it is. But I've never been a walker for a start. I just think
if you're running,
I just
you're
want
like
to get
Forrest
from
Gump. You're just running.
I just want to get from here to there in the fast. That might be walking eventually. I don't know, but
I think it will be with a walker eventually.
Like I say, those bubble wrap knees and joints and everything. That's going to play a big hand in where it goes very shortly.
Yeah.
But we're both parents. And
we are.
And one of us has entered that stage of being Yoda as far as being a grandparent. Yes,
and we're going to talk about that in another episode. We want to talk about grandparenting and stuff.
Yeah, but I thought we could dive into the world of like parental storytelling. Those old wise tales and half-truths and pure imagination, that stories that your folks or your grandparents or whoever told you that weren't quite true, but probably had an element of sort of truth somewhere back in the day.
Or proved that they had a sense of humour and were messing with us.
Oh, it's like, do you remember those gems, like if you sit too close to the TV, you'll get square eyes or you'll go blind?
Yep. I definitely remember that. I got that one, and why is it as a kid, why did we sit so close to the TV? Well, our eyes were great. We had great eyes, right? So we shouldn't have needed to, but why did we?
Yeah, it was so we could hear it better.
Okay,
I'm sure we sat closer so we could hear the TV.
Surely we had good ears. Even though over our siblings fighting and stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look, it was, it could have been, but I don't know whether that put the fear of goodness into us, because did we go and check to make sure our eyes weren't square?
Weren't going square. And
yeah, because there are other things that we got told that you'd go blind if you did as well, but I don't think
that's
we'll
right.
go into that. Yeah, so
no,
TV was probably the lesser of two evils, really, wasn't it?
Well, that's right.
But
Moving right along.
the other thing was, I remember my mum used to say, if you don't wash your ears, potatoes will grow out.
What?
Did you ever get that?
No.
Oh, don't. Yeah, I got used to that.
How did you wash your
I
ears?
used to get like the sponge or the flannel or whatever, and so if you don't wash your ears, you'll get potatoes growing out of them.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that one.
Oh, yeah. Look, I
Wow.
know. I don't quite know why, but
Mrs. Rollerson, that was a bit of gold from you.
there are a few in there. Were there any that you sort of got stung with?
Well, I remember the if you eat a watermelon seed, a watermelon will grow in your tummy. That was, and I was terrified of swallowing it. So as kids, we grew up pulling all the seeds out of the watermelon, and it's literally. I was a teenager before I realised you could eat them and nothing bad would happen.
Watermelon used to be one of those things that Dad and I used to share. It was one of those little bonding moments. Apart from being down the back and burning stuff in an incinerator, but that's for another day.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah, you'd spit out a million seeds from that watermelon because you just weren't allowed to swallow them, and I didn't know why, but yeah.
You couldn't, but that was back in the day when fruit had seeds. Do you know, like now you can get mandarins that are seedless, oranges are seedless, everything's seedless. How did we? Yeah, when I gave my kids a mandarin when they were little and they bit on a seed, they were, ew, what's
Mm.
that? And spat the whole thing out. Whereas that's the way we grew up.
We've got a whole fruits of the forest growing in our tummy these days, haven't we? Because we would have had
Absolutely.
mandarins, oranges, watermelons,
Mm-hmm.
everything just eating all those seeds. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that with chewing gum. If you're allowed to have chewing gum or bubble gum when you're a kid,
That's right.
don't swallow it
Don't
because
swallow it.
it'll stay in your belly and, for
Yep.
gosh knows how long.
Yep.
So there are all those sort of things. Even eating carrots. Eating carrots is going to help your eyesight.
Yep.
And so you'd have to sit there and eat your carrots, and you think, oh yeah, I
Okay.
can.
Well, I'll
Yep.
stomach those if it means I'm going to have good eyesight. Yep.
Yeah, because rabbits can see in the dark, and that made sense to
Yep.
probably 5-year-old.
Yep.
So they ate carrots, and it made complete
Yeah,
sense.
definitely. I remember when I was a kid, when I was, I don't know how old, between 5 and 10 somewhere, um, I broke out in warts on my knees, like a lot of kids do,
Mm.
and my grandma bought them off me for 5 cents each.
How did that work? What was
Exactly.
that?
I've got to be psychosomatic or whatever, right? So she's like, I had like 3 warts, and she goes, well, here's 3 5-cent pieces. Go and put them under your pillow. Don't spend the money, and I'll buy them off you. And within 3 days, they were gone.
Really?
I don't know how that worked. I still don't know how that worked. And I couldn't have been the only one. But yeah, Grandma bought my warts off
There
me.
must have been a basis behind all that because that's not something you can just make up, is it? Because
I know.
yeah, and that it'll
And I'd
work.
love to hear from people, listening. If that happened to you, shoot us a note on the Big 60 Facebook page and tell us if that was something you heard. But the same grandma, you're talking about wives' tales, when we were kids and we got badly sunburnt. She thought the best thing to do was to put butter on it,
Mm?
which effectively cooking our skin. Or the sting that you'd get in your skin from sunburn, the best way to get rid of that was to get into a hot bath as hot as you could stand.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when we think about that now,
I know.
oh my gosh,
I know.
that was such bad advice.
Well, I remember the hot bath one. I think my grandmother used to talk about putting butter on a burn.
Mm,
But I
yep.
remember when we'd go to the beach, and you had to go out to the beach to get a bit of colour on you. My grandmother used to have this mix of olive oil and vinegar, and she used to
Oh,
make it up in a jar, shake it up, and she'd put it on your shoulders and whatever, because the olive oil was supposed to protect you from the sun,
oh my
and the vinegar
gosh.
would take the sting out of the sunburn, which
So
was
you're cooking.
sort of counterintuitive because if you were going to get sunburn and you needed the vinegar to take the sting out, then the olive oil wasn't really doing
Yeah.
its job, was it?
Yep.
So
Yep.
as a kid, that you just go around smelling like fish and chips when you're
That's right. But that, I mean, we believed what our grandmothers and our mothers told us, and they believed it too. That's what they were brought up with. There was no malice intended. It was just what they believed.
And a lot of these things must have had a basis of truth. And while I'm on that beach thing, did you ever get told that you shouldn't go swimming straight after eating because you'll get cramps
Yep,
or whatever?
definitely.
Yeah. So I don't know where that came from, but it must have
Yep.
happened if you and I heard about it.
Had to stay out of and I was like in my 20s before I challenged that and went, now hang on a minute. If I go in the water with a full stomach, I'm not necessarily going to die. I can still swim.
But there was always a little bit of caution there, and you would say, I don't know why, because I would have
Yeah.
thought that if you're at the beach and you're with your parents as a kid, you probably want those kids to get out of your hair for as quickly as you can, not sitting around on the beach for half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. And what about if you frowned or went cross-eyed and the wind changed, your face would stay like that? That was
Yeah.
terrifying for
Yeah.
a kid.
Oh, did you try it though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still did it. Yeah.
That explains a
But
few things anyway.
thank you.
Yeah.
My cross eyes.
I would try that and then be
Oh.
absolutely petrified and go and look in the mirror just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
think I got away with that one.
Yeah.
So
Oh
what?
my
And
gosh.
one that I thought, to eat your crust makes your hair go curly.
Yes.
Ne-
Yeah.
never
And we
happened.
I passed that on to my kids, and I remember kids, oh, I want curly hair.
But there were so many. I mean, not that. I mean, I guess when you're little, like if you got wet hair, don't go outside because you'll get a cold. So there's
Yes. Yep.
all those little stories that
Yeah.
you just can't make them up. You've got to have.
Mm.
There must have been some anecdote, and how long they've been passed down from generation to generation. Some would have been
Yeah.
made up in your household, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There was a friend of mine whose mother used to go around the house and change all the clocks before bedtime. So if it was before 8:30, she'd go around and change all the clocks and put them forward to like 20 past 8 and say, look at the time, it's only 10 minutes before bedtime.
Oh my gosh.
And so
Really?
when they're all clocks with hands on them necessarily,
Yeah.
she'd go around and she'd change the clocks and show the kids and say, look, it's this time, only 10 minutes more. And they just, oh yeah, okay, it's nearly time for bed.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's not really an old wives' tale, but that's just something that I
I
don't
love
know.
it.
I mean, I guess when they were 18, they probably woke up to that story, but
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done this is bad, but my grandma, the same grandma, used to would make a Christmas pudding every year, and there was always 5 cents in it. And whoever got the 5 cent it can't be good putting metal in food.
I remember
It
that.
can't be good for you.
I remember that. My grandma used to do it, but I remember 5 cents used to be sixpences they used to put in there, and it was
Yes.
the same thing. But like,
Yeah.
how many kids used to crack their teeth, or you think, oh,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like a lot of those sixpences had probably, I don't know, some carcinogen in there while you. I don't know how it worked. Did they slide
All
them
the
in?
germs from all the people that had handled it.
Yeah, yeah, I do remember that. The other thing I used to get when I was a kid was if you told a fib, there'd be a black mark on your tongue. So stick your tongue out and let me have a look.
Oh, I do vaguely remember that.
I used to get. I shouldn't say I used to get
Oh.
that a lot, but I used to get that. And
Yeah.
are you telling a fib? Show me your tongue. And you thought,
Yeah.
and of course, if you didn't want to show
Uh-oh.
your tongue, you gave yourself up. Like,
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
and so all of a sudden it was.
Don't make me do it.
Yeah, all of a sudden you thought, oh, there must be a spot there because
Yeah.
mum and dad knew that I was telling a fib because
Yeah.
it's because you never put your tongue out.
One of my that's right. One of my personal favorites, and I did this to my kids, was the eyes in the back of your head. My mum had eyes in the back of her head it was under her hair somewhere. And I did the same thing to my kids. And years later, my daughter, who's now 23, she said, Mum, I think I was 15 before I realised you didn't actually have eyes in the back of your head. But so we're passing that stuff on as well, and she probably will to her kids.
Yeah.
It's because it's a little weapon in your arsenal as a parent, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I've got to come clean. I'm actually doing that with my grandson now. Not the eyes
There you go.
not the eyes in the back of your head, but Papa's got eyes that can see anything, sort of thing, And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I can see around walls and around corners and all those sort of things. So yeah, I'm as big a criminal as probably my parents and grandparents when it comes to
Yeah, we
to
do
those
it.
stories.
We're
as
doing
well.
those things.
Yeah.
Now, your great aunt told you something about putting your mouth on the metal bus seat
Oh,
in front of
don't
you
make me tell
on the bus.
you that.
What did she tell you?
Don't make me
You
tell
can't tease me like that and say, no, here's the story, but I can't say
This
it.
is
Come on, tell
something
us.
I need to tell you, not within the podcast. But let's just say that political correctness will stop me from telling you why I wasn't allowed to do that.
Okay.
But this was a thing from a great aunt, and we used to go. She was a very little lady. Her feet wouldn't touch the floor on the bus, so she used to be able to swing her feet. But you'd rest and have your sort of mouth on the little bar on the thing, and she said,
Yeah.
"Oh, don't put your mouth on there because." And
Yeah.
anyway,
Okay.
but
Was it something racist or was it something sexual?
it
Or
may have been something that was a little racist, but back in the day, it
okay,
was
got
possibly okay to say that to your 3-year-old when he was on the bus.
yeah.
So and
Okay.
it's sat with me
Right.
now for over 50 years. So, but
Okay.
something
Got you.
that's also sat with me is what you shouldn't do in a swimming pool because the water might turn pink if you do it,
Oh yes.
or blue or red or
Oh, whatever color. Yeah.
whatever color.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I
Yeah.
remember that.
I don't know. I
Oh,
mean, Dad even convinced me one day that he bought a special chemical that he would put in the pool. That
that's what people used to say. There's a special chemical, and you'd be terrified. Absolutely
I
terrified.
know, but
Oh,
this has come from a father who also and used to say to me, we bought guinea pigs. I don't know why they make
yeah. We had
useless
guinea
animals.
pigs.
I think
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Your dog or
Yeah.
cat that shows you some sort of affection. Even a bird knows when you're coming to do something. I'm sure, but he used to say,
Yeah.
"Look, whatever you do, don't hold that guinea pig up by the tail because its eyes will drop out." So
Yeah, that's
I had to look
hilarious.
everywhere before I realised that guinea pigs didn't have a tail.
Don't have a tail.
So, so I don't know. I think that's just something that he's made up along the way.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
hilarious.
like we had we. I learnt very quickly too. We had a beautiful Samoyed dog.
Mm.
I must have been about 7 or 8, and someone was letting out the local dogs. They were opening the gates for people's homes, and there 4 or 5 dogs would all get out
Mm.
together, and they would eventually they were starting to get a little bit not vicious, but they were getting, so because they'd go and hunt around in packs all night and you have to go and collect them just from the neighbourhood streets. Anyway, Dad got jack of it, and they were back in the days before you had cameras and everything like that. And he told us, "Oh, look, we're going to have to take insert name here to the special farm, and that's where dogs go, so as they can have lots of space to run and things like that." So until such time, I
Oh.
thought there was this very kindly sort of farmer from like Babe Pig in the City that had this massive property where all these random dogs would go
Oh,
and just
no.
live out their lives having the best
Oh
time.
my goodness. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
So,
Oh.
there are those
Oh.
things that sort of sit with you.
Yes. Yeah.
One that I remember as well, and I'm doing all the talking, is that TV. Did you ever get? We need to either go to bed or you need to turn TV off because it sometimes runs out of batteries.
No, I didn't get that one. I didn't hear that one. No.
Look, it's probably time to go to bed soon because the TV will run out of
Oh
batteries.
wow. That's a bit
And
of gold from your parents. Wow.
they had them
I
all.
love
They
it.
had them all, and that was at the time when you would actually turn the TV off, and there was a little light that used to in
Yeah.
the tube, and you'd sort of get as close as you possibly could to the tube until you couldn't see
That
that
little
little light
dot
that had
go,
gone
yeah.
out on the
And then
tube.
you'd
Yeah,
run and
little
check and
dot.
see whether your eyes had gone square.
That's right,
That's
because
it.
you were way too close to the
I used to
TV.
think when I was little, I used to think that, you'd listen to the radio and you'd hear the bands. When I was really little, I used to think that was like little miniature musicians inside the radio playing.
Oh,
But then
really?
when I got older and smarter, I thought that they were all the bands were at the radio station and they would go in, play their song, and then go go to the back of the queue and wait for the next time to play their song. And if they
Well,
left the spot in the queue, their song wouldn't get played again until they came back and joined the queue. And they didn't
and
have a life.
the little people in the radio sort of, yeah, I don't know. I might have questioned that a little bit, but very plausible. The whole like
Yeah,
go out to the green room and just wait for your turn to come and play,
that's
and
right. And
in
then
you
out you
go.
go.
So,
And it didn't occur to me that the instruments and moving stuff around, they just, yeah. Especially
so
if
when
the artists were actually in it, having an interview or something.
so when you moved into radio and you had such a long, sort of illustrious career in radio, and your name was sort of bandied around in the halls of fame and all.
You keep telling me, yeah.
Yeah, was that just were you disappointed and think, hang on, where's that special
I
room that they
was.
keep all
Yeah.
these
Where are all
bands?
these bands? I want to go and see where AC/DC is or the Angels or something. Oh
Did
my
you
gosh.
did you ever get And I got this when I was very little. If you were, if you woke up and you had a bad dream, that you turn your pillow over to the good dream side.
No, I'd turn the pillow over to the cool side.
Ah,
But there
okay.
wasn't a good dream and a bad dream side,
Yeah,
no. But that's
well,
a great idea. I'm loving that.
yeah. Look, I'd forgotten about that until we were thinking about, let's have a chat about some of these sort of old tales, and I thought I must remember that one because that was a goodie.
Yeah,
That
well,
was a
speaking of
goodie.
like being in bed, I used to, and I think I mentioned this when we spoke to a few episodes ago to Simon Foster about movies, when I saw Jaws and frightened the daylights out of me. And I remember thinking that there were sharks in the carpet. And so I started this thing where I wouldn't let any limbs outside of the bed because there were monsters outside that would, if my arm just happened to fall outside
Oh,
the
wow,
bed, something would grab it and eat it.
wow.
So I ended up sleeping in the fetal position for the next 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
And if I'd wake up, I'd pull my arm back under the cover again in case there were boogeymen.
That's big. That's a commitment to make
Yeah.
sure that you don't get out of bed and you're going
I
that.
can't believe I didn't challenge like sharks in the carpet, Kaylee. Really? Really?
Yeah, but they're the things you think. I mean, if you ever watch the whole Toy Story movie thing, where there's that monster that will come out of the
Yeah.
cupboard,
Yeah.
and not Toy Story, Monsters
Monsters
Inc.
Inc. Yeah. Yeah.
And the monsters would come
Yeah.
out of the cupboard. So your imagination sort of there's a degree of truth whether you're 3 or whether you're 10. Where there's always a degree of truth in some of these
Yeah.
stories where you're not at an age where you can completely dismiss it, and that's enough. It's like as an adult, how many people will still say, "Oh, look, if you break a mirror, it's 7 years bad luck."
Well, yeah. Yeah, that. And if a black cat, crosses your path, it's 7 years bad luck and all that. We're getting into superstition, though, aren't we?
Yeah, look, if a black cat crossed my path,
Mm.
I'm telling you now, the bad luck would be on the cat.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now.
I got a black cat that crosses my path 50, 100 times a day here. So it's, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
guess you could read into that.
you and I, and a lot of listeners probably have heard your cat.
Yeah,
But,
that's right. Yes.
something you hear people talk about, and I'd never heard it until people started talking about the old Mr. Whippy truck and the whole when it's playing music, it means it's run out of ice cream.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I've heard so many people say
Really?
that their parents used to talk about that. I'd never had.
That's a bit of gold from parents, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd hate my parents if
Yes.
I'd got delivered that one.
That's a beauty. Oh,
Yeah,
the Mr.
but
Whippy truck. There's a whole podcast in just that.
Oh, well, but these days we've got a Mr. Coffee guy that
Yeah,
comes around the
yeah.
street every 3 days or something and
Yeah.
delivers home coffee.
Yeah.
But I used to tell my kids, and they're all grown up now, that like if they graze their knees or whatever, and you'd put antiseptic on it, the reason it hurt is because it was all the germs yelling out and sort of crying and
Yeah,
dying,
yeah.
and so they'd put up with that because they thought,
Yeah.
that's the germs.
The
that
bad
are
germs and the
escaping
good
from-"
germs are having a fight with their little shields and swords.
Yeah,
And that's why it hurts, because they're all stabbing each other with their swords.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'd put up with that, and sometimes
Yep.
I have to tell myself that,
Yes.
if I'm sort of
I
if I'm
remember-
not playing walking soccer.
There you go. I remember you know how you can you can blur your eyes, you can make your eyes go blurry and look at things blurry. I used to think that I was anyone that could do it, and I had this superpower. And it took me, like, I got to school and mentioned it one day, and it was like, no, everyone can do that. It's like, really? I thought it was just me.
I think after the age of 50, everyone can do it anyway. It's just a
Yeah, that's
natural
right.
ability. Your eyes are
That's
just
right.
blurry.
They're
and you
just
think,
blurry all the time.
We're both wearing our glasses at the moment, and I'm not sure why, because I know you're there and we're talking.
Yeah.
I don't know that I need to see too much, but yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that we probably, I don't know whether we grew up with it, but it's still part of the lexicon today. You go to a barbecue and if food hits the ground, there's a 5-second rule. It's okay
Oh,
as
yep.
long as you can pick
Yep.
it up within
Yeah.
5 seconds.
That
It's
doesn't make
edible.
sense, right? Yeah,
Well,
you can pick it up, but we still do. I still do that because I don't want to waste food, so I still go for the 5-second rule. But how does that work?
I don't know. I mean, I probably do it as well. So if a snag hits the ground,
Yeah.
quick, there you go. No, that's
Quick,
okay.
you can
it's
eat it.
fine.
Yeah, that's all
that's
good.
fine.
Yeah.
And cracking your knuckles. Did you ever do the whole, crack your knuckles?
No, that's a boy thing.
Yeah, is it?
That's
Oh, is it?
I hate it. Yeah,
Is
my sons do it, and it's like, don't do that around me. It's awful.
Yeah, it's
Awful noise.
It is an awful noise. My grandson does it, and like he does it,
Why
and
do people do it?
he takes I used to get told, I can't remember if it was like, if you do that, it'll give you arthritis or whatever eventually.
Yeah, that's what I
he
yeah.
takes great delight in sort of sitting there, and we might be watching something or doing something, and
Yeah.
he will, I was going to say pull my finger, but that's another story, isn't it?
That's another podcast.
But no, he will try and crack my knuckles without me knowing, and he'll try and,
Yeah.
and it hurts. I think, but he will do it, and I don't know
Why people do that.
Why, I have no idea.
And
but
it's almost like once they start doing it, they have to keep doing it.
Yep.
Have you noticed that? People then they'll just keep doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Once a day or once a week or whatever.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you with one that I didn't grow up with, but my wife grew up with it.
Yep.
About the little man in the fridge that turns a light on and off.
Yes, that's right. I do remember that.
I didn't know about that.
That's a classic.
Until much later. I thought there was a little man in the fridge.
In the fridge.
So don't leave the fridge open because the little man needs to turn the light off. And I thought, where's this little man? Like, does he hide in the salad crisper or what does he do?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
And how do you get that job description?
Exactly.
I
exactly.
don't know. Do I want that job? I mean, is that a great job for retirees? And I think, I don't know. But that little man, so...
The little guy in the fridge. I'm going to leave you with one. I used to actually think, and I was quite little, that in a movie or in a TV show, when somebody died, when the character died, the actor had actually sacrificed themselves for that role. I honestly thought that till I was about 10. And I used to think, these actors, they're like, why would anyone want that job? Why does anyone want to be an actor? Because I honestly thought when they died in the movie, I believed everything I sort of saw on movies or TV, that they were dead in real life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That explains a lot, doesn't it, about my state of mind?
That's pretty big, yeah. And so that means you only ever saw one movie without the same actor in it or whatever.
That's right.
Because they never had this resurrection.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden I got to about 10 and went, hang on a minute. Didn't you die a couple of years ago in another movie?
Does that explain when people say, remember that actor? Oh, aren't they dead?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Kaylee said they were.
I know.
Hey, it's time for us to go. But
right, you are.
But,
that was a lot of fun.
I think this podcast's starting to run out of batteries. I'm not sure. I know the TV's and I've got to go and plug it in or whatever I've got to do.
Right.
But we'll talk again.
See you next week.
See you later. Ciao.
The views and opinions expressed on the Big 60 are personal and reflect those of the hosts and guests. They do not represent the views or positions of any affiliated organisations or companies. This podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for guidance on any personal matters.
And before we go, let's give credit where credit is due. Kaylee Harris and I came up with all the genius content for this week's episode. Our producer, Nick Abood, well, he keeps the lights on and makes sure we don't accidentally upload a cat video instead of a podcast. So thanks for keeping us on track, Nick. Nick?